Hello everyone. So this is going to be a slightly different video from me. It's not exactly the video I wanted to make next, but some IRL stuff happened and Zoss has been fumbling the bag heavy since my last upload. I also got fisted by YouTube on that last vid, and then another thing happened, IRL, that compounded that issue. I'm not going to get into it here because I have enough rage to spare as it is with today's topic. It's no secret that I am very vocal about my issues with ESO. As much as I love the game, there are certain decisions I simply cannot vibe with. However, those who know me well might recognize that I've generally been pretty tame in my criticisms in these videos, and overall fairly lenient. I wouldn't say I always give Zoss the benefit of the doubt, but I've made an effort to not be overly harsh with how I word my feedback. Like I said, I love this game, and I want it to succeed, as much as and as such, don't want to contribute to the absolute mountain of vitriolic blanket statement style ad hominem discourse that dominates this community, at least on the forums. There are real people working at ZeniMax who oftentimes are genuinely doing their best to give us something worth playing. Mistakes happen, certainly, and I'd rather offer words of encouragement while not ignoring the obvious issues. ZeniMax has huge communication problems, and one of them is their avoidance of acknowledging major problems or speaking negatively in any way. This overly positive language they use, the silencing of negative feedback, no matter how minor, and the refusal to even publicly address many of the biggest issues plaguing this game has only been driving players away and causing player feedback to become exponentially more hostile. There's only so many times a person will tolerate being ignored or silenced. So, while I have tremendous respect for many people who work at ZeniMax and can't even begin to claim that I understand their job, or that I know better, or that I even understand the dynamics and pressures they face day to day internally, I've come to a point where I cannot continue to be entirely charitable. Yeah, I know it sucks to not hear as many jokes this time, but it needs to be understood, so I'm going to state my views clearly and plainly. I have said before that I do not think the devs of this game actually play it, but god damn, ESO's recent Battleground stream proved me more right than I thought it would. To see the lead combat designer fail so catastrophically, unable to answer simple questions about combat, or make a competent PvP build, or seemingly even know that he needed a heavy attack to restore resources, is absolutely bonkers. It's so unbelievably atrocious that it almost feels like an intentional gotcha moment. Like, he's using an Oaken Soul build on a healer with a sword and board. The only explanation I can think of is that he's using this clearly incompetent build to demonstrate that Oaken Soul isn't as overpowered as some people say, but it doesn't even make sense because anyone with two brain cells to rub together would know that it's just poorly built, an ineffective use case for that mythic, and the player lacking even the slightest modicum of skill. I make fun of Rich Lambert a lot, but I have clearly been sleeping on the absolute goldmine of outrage that is Brian Wheeler. At the very least, I can take comfort in the fact that my first video on this game was 100% fucking accurate in that these devs do not play their own game. But it's so much worse than I thought, because initially I stated that they don't play their game because they don't seem to understand the day-to-day experience of the average player. Whether it's PvP or grouping with randos for dungeons, they never seem to fix a lot of the major issues that are plaguing the average player that we all face from day to day, that's become memes in the community because they're so prevalent. But actually, they don't even understand the fundamentals of how their game is even played, how it's intended to be played, how people engage with it, let alone just the simple day-to-day experience. So while I'm here, let me run down a quick list of some of the big fuck-ups the devs made recently so you can see just how fucked up this game is right now. Now, one quick aside before I get fully into this, I don't actually have a lot of recent footage of Elder Scrolls Online to show you, so I'll be showing clips from other games, because I haven't been playing a lot of ESO lately, and I've also had a lot of issues with Shadowplay not really working properly, so I'm just going to show you random clips that I have from other games. I apologize for the seeming irrelevance of the video footage I'm using. ZeniMax launched Update 40 last year with the new Torque of the Last Alien King mythic, and it doesn't work. Its effect states that it offers a bunch of bonuses but disables other set bonuses. Now, due to incompetence, the effect applied to itself, so it gave no bonuses of its own while still also disabling other bonuses. The most obvious bug that could have come out of a mythic like this, and they didn't manage to fix it before live. Scions of Athelia comes out, introducing the new Tarnished Nightmare set. For unknown reasons, the set gains a damage bonus based on how many enemies are nearby if used alongside something like Proximity Detonation, which has a similar scaling effect. It took them 2 weeks to fix this, which honestly isn't that bad, but it was discovered by the community almost immediately and abused so heavily that it broke PvP during its bugged phase. And I have found zero evidence that ZOS actually punished any of the players who abused the exploit knowingly. I personally reported multiple players and provided an unlisted YouTube link to videos documenting proof of the exploit being used by different players. Those videos remain at 0 views, meaning ZOS never even watched them. And after that update went live, those players were still in game day 1 from the update. They never got banned. After the bug fix, though, Tarnished Nightmare continued to dominate, due to being an ability that can proc on anyone damaged by the user once every 8 seconds. It deals AoE damage, it procs from crits, applies the Sundered effect, which reduces the target's armor and increases the weapon and spell damage of the user. So if you just put a dot on some enemies, anytime that dot crits after the 8-second cooldown, you get a free AoE damage burst, free damage buff, and free armor reduction. To mitigate this, ZOS added a telegraph and a short delay before the proc to improve counterplay, which inherently is a good thing, is to have more counterplay. But a 1.3 second delay doesn't offer a whole lot of time, given a few things such as input delay, severe lag that has only been getting worse recently, and of course, the half-second global cooldown on skills. Counterplay is nice and essential, but it does little to nothing to reduce the actual power of the set. Meanwhile, they released another very powerful, clearly untested set for Dragon Knights, not that they needed the help, called Pyrebrand, which offers them yet another damage over time ability with the added bonus of an AoE explosion that has built-in damage modifiers. In their infinite wisdom, they nerfed the shit out of it by reducing its damage and removing its ability to critically strike, even though it never should have been able to critically strike due to their rules about built-in damage modifiers. So ultimately, it was overperforming only because it could critically strike, but they nerfed the base damage on top of fixing that bug and ended up heavily nerfing this set's damage potential, even though without the critically strike thing, it wasn't really overperforming. It was a strong set, certainly, but not dominating like Tarnished. Alongside that set, they also introduced new mini-bosses to Infinite Archive. Of course, let's not pretend these are actually mini-bosses, given that they're typically the run killers more than any actual boss. But, oops, they screwed up their AI, allowing them to swap targets mid-swing, turn on a dime while doing almost any attack, making them extremely unpredictable in a 2-person archive run scenario. And I don't even know if it's been fixed by this point. Then they introduced an automated chat moderation system, or at least expanded the one that already existed to cover private chats between consenting adults, which led to sweeping bans and suspensions rather than mutes or anything of that sort, punishment befitting of the crime, so to speak. They admitted they did this, decided not to change anything or explain why the bans happened, just reversing them and then shutting down the forum thread discussing it. To be fair, at the behest of the forum thread's original poster, but it still killed the discussion, and by extension, the outrage died down. Oh, and of course, there's also a lot of bootlickers who think that this invasion of privacy is okay. Then the Gold Road celebration event happens. It's a tradition they do now where they do an in-game event to celebrate the most recent chapter release by adding a community goal where if we get enough people to complete a specific task, we fill up this little progress bar on the website and unlock rewards the further the bar gets. As usual, of course, there's no transparency as to how many people are required to reach each milestone because ZOS doesn't ever want us seeing the actual player numbers of this game. But the bigger pain point was that they changed the required objective to reach the milestones and offered no information in the in-game announcement on what the objective actually was. Clicking on the announcement takes you to the Crown Store, like with most events, as there's usually an associated quest in the Crown Store, but not this time? Hilariously, though, the event's new objective was to complete an associated quest. But you wouldn't know that unless you went to the website or saw the Steam announcement, or I guess maybe went to the F1 help menu in-game that no one ever uses except to report teabagging. Oh, and if you did see the Steam announcement, they listed the wrong names for the new motif drops for the event. Oh, and those motifs didn't release with the event anyways, so it's wrong and it's a liar. Then Update 44 gets announced on a live stream. They're erasing Battlegrounds and replacing it with the new and improved Battlegrounds. And if you don't like it, you get your comment in the Twitch chat deleted. Then they announced 2 new companions, which are not included for owners of Gold Road, but the first companions to be individually sold on the Crown Store. $10 if you want a useless tag-along that'll get mad at you for doing normal activities. Reset bosses you're fighting because they just dodge roll backwards repeatedly until the boss hits the edge of its aggro range, if of course they survive for more than 2 hits. And they'll give you a passive bonus if you grind out raising their rapport and do all their quests that you'll likely not even remember you have 2 weeks after you're done. Oh, and while they got the legendary Darren DePaul to voice one of the companions, which is a Khajiit, even though we already have a Khajiit and are missing several other races as companions, the other character is non-binary and looks like they were designed by a 13-year-old. Oh, and if you don't like it, your comments get deleted, and you might get banned. Also, you're a bigot. Funny how they were like, we can't keep Athelia in the story because she's not in the later games in the timeline. But we can add a non-binary person to the earliest game in the timeline despite no other characters ever identifying that way, and we'll make her an Altmer with purple eyes, even though that's not a customization option for Altmer, and give them a unique hairstyle that's also purple, even though that's also never been seen before. I have lots to say about Ted Lauren, but I have a whole video I want to do on that dumpster fire. To be fair, they're not even that bad, but I have a lot of funny jokes I want to make, so I'll leave them for another time. Then, someone complains on the forums that the new 8v8 Battlegrounds will be totally ruined by the Azurblight set. Even though those are supposed to be the casual Battlegrounds, and in most game modes, there won't be enough people stacked in one spot to actually make use of Azurblight. Plus, the previous version of Battlegrounds, you were against 8 people at a time, and it wasn't a problem then. But ZOS listens to that absurdity for some reason and nerfs the only decent ball group killing set in the game to be functionally worthless. PvE exclusive, which is extra hilarious because it was already only useful for specific fights there too, and they just made it worse across the board. Tarnished Nightmare's still strong though, don't worry, and I promise the glass shattering sound effect won't give you tinnitus. Trust me. And then the update hits PTS, and they announced Shadowy Disguise getting a complete rework despite not needing one, and having stayed roughly the same for 10 years now, effectively ruining the skill and not providing the meta change they wanted. The point was apparently to punish permacloaked players to reduce ganking potential and also make it viable in PvE? It's an invisibility skill, guys. It's never going to be viable in PvE. It doesn't provide anything to your group. The 10% damage bonus isn't even worth it. In solo play, it just resets enemies. In teams, it just takes up a slot that could be spent on another damage over time skill or a buff or literally anything that's already meta because it would vastly outperform a 10% damage bonus that only lasts for 10 seconds and therefore requires a stupidly high amount of maintenance. It only makes ganking slightly harder, furthering the skill gap between inexperienced Nightblade players who haven't discovered Shadow Image yet, and encouraging ranged ganking, which is infinitely harder to defend against compared to the higher damage melee ganking, which still one-shots basically anyone. Then, the update hits live servers, and I guess is secretly named the Golden Pursuits update based on the new Golden Pursuits feature, which is kind of like Endeavors, but actually meaningful because you can get rewards from it fairly quickly, and isn't a 19-year grind for a currency that can only be spent on things that have a limited window of availability. But the update goes live without a Golden Pursuit actually active, because they're only available when the devs randomly decide to make one available for like a week. So no one even notices that it's there. Then, a few weeks later, they finally launch a Golden Pursuit, which offers a couple of the best cosmetics we've gotten in years, not gonna lie. But when you complete enough objectives to unlock a reward, you can't clear the notification from your screen. Fun fact, this bug was also present on PTS. And ZOS never fixed it before launch. They had weeks to do so and still fucked it up, despite it being such an obvious bug. Oh, and they started a new event, but forgot to enable the event vendors. You know, the central feature of every event? Hot damn! Oh, and then the new Battlegrounds comes out. The queue is broken from the get-go. People can't get in most of the time. When they do occasionally get in, they sit in the lobby for like 5 minutes waiting for the teams to fill. But then the teams sit at 7 out of 8 players, so the timer hits 0 and kicks everyone out, effectively wasting everyone's time. And the leaderboards and apparently MMR are based on medal score rather than win-loss ratios or KDR or APM or anything like that. So healers start topping leaderboards because healing medals are so easy to get high medal score with, but some of the healers have way fewer wins than others, so it's incredibly imbalanced. They also introduced a feature where if you stay in your team's spawn for too long, it automatically kicks you out into the arena. That's a great feature, but it's active prior to the match starting, so since it can't push you out into the arena, you just randomly teleport back to the spawn point every 2 minutes while waiting. Also, during the official Battlegrounds live stream, they sat in that 5-minute lobby timer multiple times and ended up getting kicked out repeatedly because the team still couldn't fill. You go on a big live stream event to advertise your new feature, but you didn't finish it. So what's the takeaway here? Well, in the past, I've posited a couple of theories about why ESO seems to be spiraling right now. And now I have even more ideas on why that is. So first of all, like I've said before, the devs clearly do not play this game. Thanks for proving that theory right, Brian. Continue to get paid to do basically nothing. Another thought that I've had lately is that some of the team may have been moved over to work on ZeniMax's other unannounced MMO project, leaving a skeleton crew to maintain ESO ahead of some major reveal either at the Game Awards or the January live stream ZeniMax does every year. Of course, that's just speculation. Given the lack of content, given how the 10-year anniversary event seems to be kind of fizzling out, running out of steam kind of thing, just less content, more bugs being included at launch of new features, all that stuff. It seems like they don't have enough manpower, or whoever is working on this game right now is just incompetent. But that said, I wasn't even entirely counting on the people who are leading this game's development currently being this fucking incompetent. Like, not understanding the day-to-day experience is one thing, but being combat lead and not knowing that heavy attacks restore resources is entirely another. It's the central mechanic of your game. We also found out that the ZeniMax Umbrella employees just went on strike due to Microsoft refusing to meet certain demands. Well, that explains a lot. Especially makes sense that some of the senior staff have been leaving ZeniMax after the Microsoft buyout. Listen, we all knew Microdick buying Zenny had a bleak outlook, but holy hell, can we just fire Phil Spencer already? This dude is a stain on the industry. So what we're left with is a company that listens to toxic casuals who know nothing about how the game works, doesn't admit its own faults, doesn't communicate problems, doesn't play their own game or even understand its fundamentals, went on strike because Microsoft sucks to no one's surprise, can't fix even the most obvious bugs, likely due to the notion that apparently Microsoft has been outsourcing their quality assurance, which is another can of worms. And I just, where are they taking us with all this? Did they refuse to respond to major issues consistently. Their changes are half-baked, untested, and ignorant of their own impact, and the player base is dying off faster than ever. Major content creators in the community are even turning their backs on this game. Hell, Outcast hasn't even put out guides in how fucking long. You can't even go and learn how the new trials work because one of the main sources of guides isn't posting any. I canceled my subscription the moment they responded to the automated chat moderation outrage because I knew nothing was going to change, and I'm not going to keep giving money to a group of people that can just decide randomly to one day shut down my access to a product that I pay for without any warning and basically no reason. So that's it. I'm done being charitable. Rich Lambert is just bad at his job, hates this game, hates its players, and does not deserve his position. Brian Wheeler also appears to be an incompetent pile who can't understand the very combat system he is the lead designer for and has been for 5 fucking years. Obviously, there's people like Gina Bruno and Andrew Young who seem to be very good at their jobs, but oh wait, what's this? Andrew Young left the company. Apparently his last project as a writer there was Zareth Var's story. No wonder he's like the best fucking Khajiit ever introduced in this series. And it isn't just Darren DePaul's voice, although that does help. Anyways, ZeniMax is falling apart. This game got so fucking lame. The leadership needs to change, and I
I don't know, maybe we should all just cancel our subs. I don't know if there's still the passion there. I don't know if Microsoft has killed morale, or people that are incompetent like Brian Wheeler and Rich Lambert being in charge killed morale, or what the hell is going on. I don't know if they're placing some weird restrictions on people. I obviously know that outsourcing quality assurance is just obviously fucking bad for a game. I still have a lot of faith that Matt Feror seems to be a good dude. I think that he's probably got his attention on their other MMO project right now and has left Rich Lambert largely in charge of the game. But I feel like that something drastic needs to change. These past couple of years were supposed to be a time of ZeniMax trying to get back in the good graces of the player base after screwing us over so hard with update 35, which is still, those changes are still live. Those are still part of the game, and they have largely broken it. They have the issue of capping our max light attack and heavy attack damage to punish highly skilled players who build correctly and can weave their attacks, and ultimately is the main reason why the Velothi Mage amulet is so fucking powerful right now. Everyone can get use out of it because it's so much better than using light attacks consistently. Because a 15% damage bonus across the board is just going to outperform that stupid light attack cap that doesn't need to exist, and the critical hit cap, which doesn't need to exist. At the end of the day, they're trying to make this game more casual, which I think is fine on the whole to have easy access to some of the content, but also we have veteran content for a reason. But now it's run so much deeper than that. They've screwed up so much of their goodwill with the community. Not that they had a whole lot to begin with, but this game was really strong back in 2018, and it seemed like it was getting better and better each year. Despite having issues, it was still improving. And then it started to spiral and fumble, and they added a card game that no one wanted. And don't get me wrong, the card game is good, but it seems like they spend more time balancing and fixing bugs with that than they do actually caring about genuine player concerns. I feel like these devs no longer want to work on this game. I feel like there's too much incompetence, there's too much corruption, and it needs to end. So I'm still going to play the game from time to time. I log in every day. I have 20 characters with like max mount speed and stuff like that. I do log in all the time, and I get my daily rewards and everything, and I keep up to date with what the game is doing. But I'm heartbroken. I think this community deserves better. I think the devs that are still passionate and talented, that clearly still work there, I think they deserve the freedom to make something truly great. Especially in an era of so many bad games that ignore players and try to tell people that they're bad people for not liking their games, or that they're bad people for liking better games, or whatever. It's disappointing to see yet another company slip and fall down that rabbit hole of just being a faceless corporation with no soul and no heart and no compassion. I miss when the games that we played were made by people who also play games. I miss when talent was the primary qualifier for positions of power, for leadership roles. And I don't know if we'll go back to that time soon, at least not with these big companies. I think ultimately we have to look to smaller organizations, smaller groups, to see true passion and true talent being put on display. So until next time, which I hope will be the Tanloran video, because I think it would be really fun to make. Thank you for watching. Go check out some of the other content creators in the space. Sakar has a great video on the Battlegrounds live stream. There's actually quite a few content creators who've made videos about that. Go check out Nefis Kuis, of course. He's a great creator. Definitely like his stuff. And I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.
Woo.